Hey guys, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Becca and today I'm going to be talking you guys through how I annotate books. So I was very reluctant to make this video for quite a long time because the way that I annotate is very basic in comparison to a lot of people here on BookTube. I did also include a very brief clip in a vlog one time of my process. However, how I annotate is still a question I get quite frequently, so I thought that I would make a full video for you guys that is easy to refer back to. But before we get into my annotation process, I would like to introduce you guys to today's sponsor, which is Redecor. And of course, a big thank you to Redecor for sponsoring this video and supporting my channel. So Redecor is a free to install app that allows you to complete challenges by redecorating virtually any room by changing things like the wall color, the furniture and the textiles. The reason why I personally enjoy Redecor is that it allows you to play around with things like color and design, seeing what works well together, seeing what really looks good together, which then builds like transferable design knowledge that I can apply to my own home when I am redecorating. It is super easy to use, super accessible, and it gives you lots of options throughout the different textures, paint colors and fabrics that you can use. I find that it is the perfect game to play if you need to de-stress a little bit, but it does also have a ranking feature where other users can vote on your completed designs for those of you who have a little bit of a competitive nature. Redecor is also free to play, so if any of that sounds like something that you would be interested in, you can head to my description box. Right at the top you will find a link that will take you to Redecor and you can try it out for yourself. So for my annotating process, I feel like first it is important to talk about what books I actually do annotate, because I definitely do not annotate everything that I read. I also do not really annotate based on emotion. I may tab like my favorite lines or a moment that I particularly enjoy, but I mainly tab fantasy books, especially high fantasy, adult fantasy and epic fantasy. If I am part of a read along for any book or any series, then I am probably going to tab that book. Like there's a 95% chance that that would be a book that I tab. So with it being fantasy, what I'm really looking for is a greater understanding of the magic system, the political system, anything that I feel pertains to the plot, like foreshadowing, the history and lore of the world, and the world as a whole, whether that is referring to different cultures or religions or the terrain of different areas of the world. And the reason that I do this is that I find that there is a lot of foreshadowing in fantasy novels in particular. So if anything jumps out to me, if there's like a little line that feels not necessarily out of place but it's an odd thing to draw notice to, then that is something that I'm going to be tabbing. So with my annotation system, you won't often find me having like tons of favorite moments. I very rarely do things like tab particularly romantic sections or sections that I particularly enjoy. I do that very occasionally. It tends to be with fantasy romance, but a lot of the time I just won't tab those kinds of books. So for my supplies, I don't have very much at all. I have my tab of sticky notes. We are missing a color here because the adhesive that sticks these to the board is not the best, but the tabs I would 100% recommend. These are the only tabs I use. They are extremely inexpensive. In the UK you can get them from Paperchase, and I believe, unless the price has changed, they are £4.50 for a pack, and I think you get 50 of each color. Now I have gone through quite a few of these in my time annotating, and I keep them in a little pencil case tin because, as I mentioned, that adhesive isn't great. So I keep my loose colors in the bottom here and then just fold up my full pack and keep those inside as well. Aside from my tabs, the only other thing that I have is a notebook. This is a notebook that I got in a subscription box. It's kind of like a reading journal, but once again, I don't really write down things about every single book that I've read. I do tend to write more about fantasy, especially if I'm part of a read along and I will need to draw on specific instances as talking points in a live show or any video that I make, really. I don't write in my books at all, and what I'm really doing when I'm tabbing the books is looking for those little bits of information that I may need to refer back to, and then if there are any moments that I particularly enjoy, any any character dynamics that I really love, or a particular moment that I would like to refer back to, I make a note of it in here, because I find if I tabbed everything, like this is just me tabbing the things like the politics, the world, the magic system, and it's already like chock full, and then anything else I do just write in my notebook. So this is literally it. These are all of the supplies that I have. Within the book itself, as I mentioned, I do not write on the pages at all, and I used to just tab kind of instinctually, and if I wanted to tab a book, if there was a specific area that I wanted to consistently reference throughout the book, then I would add that to my key at the front of the book. However, I have developed a system now where I kind of just focus on the same points in every book that I do tab. My most well-tabbed books are my Brandon Sanderson books, and these are the books that I was reading when I really developed my system that I'm now using. So in the front of every book, I will have a key. I will put one of each of the colors that I'm going to be using, and I will write on the sticky tab what particular thing that one is indicating. But I do the same 5 things every single time now, with the odd exception, and I tend to write my key in exactly the same order. The particular tabs that I have, I've seen people use in a variety of ways. Some people assign a color to a different thing, and they will use those colors consistently to mean the same thing. An example of this would be like the color yellow relates to the politics. I don't do that. I pick my colors based on the cover of the book that I'm reading, which is why I particularly love my Sanderson editions, because I have the UK paperbacks that all have a key color per series. So my Mistborn books, the main color on these is blue, so all of my tab colors are shades of blue and grey. The Stormlight Archive by Sanderson has red as its key color, so I've gone for the warm tones in this one. We have red, yellow and orange. And then Warbreaker is one of the prettiest ones to look at, because while the key color for this one is purple, we do have a like spectrum on the cover, and I use these little shards of color to build my key for this one. And the magic system in Warbreaker is also very closely tied to color, so we have more of a rainbow effect in this one. Brandon Sanderson is also a perfect example, because while all of these books are in separate series, they are also all part of his Cosmere, which is an extended universe. What that means is that while all of these are separate stories set in different worlds, there is a way that they all kind of interweave. Now, the way that the Cosmere is set up is that they do at the moment all pretty much stand alone, with the exception of the Stormlight Archive, which is the series that is tying the Cosmere together, and you can really see like why it's part of a universe, and there are elements of the different series in the Stormlight Archive. However, consistently through all of Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere books is a character called Hoyd. So I do have one specific color that I use to mark Hoyd and his appearances in all of the different series, and that color is fluorescent pink, because it is not consistent with any of the other colors that I have previously used in Sanderson's books. I will go through my key a little bit and let you know what specific things I'm looking for within each category to tab, just in case any of you guys are new to fantasy as a genre. It can be a little bit intimidating, especially if you're going for adult epics like Sanderson. It can get a little bit dense and a little bit difficult to understand, and I have found with different books that if I am feeling quite confused, breaking the book down into these sections and taking the time to note some of these instances can make the reading experience a little bit easier for me if I am struggling. So if you guys are wanting to know like what kind of things I will tab within these categories, I will just do like a brief breakdown here. So if I'm tabbing for magic, first and foremost, I'm looking for how the magic system works. This can be very complicated in adult fantasy, so if there are any specifics, like any particular hand gestures that the characters use, or any kind of like things that they need to ingest in case of some of these Sanderson novels that give them specific powers, I will make a note of that, because you'll find that it will be explained once, and then later on it will just kind of reference it briefly, and you are already expected to have that knowledge from earlier in the book. Now obviously our brains can't retain every single thing. Some things may slip through the cracks, so I like to make a note of that so I can refer back to it if I need to. I also sometimes tab anything suspiciously magical, like if the magic system extends past the knowledge of the characters, there may be new undiscovered like unexplored areas of the magic system and they may crop up. I will tab that. And also occasionally if I find that the magic system is being been used in like new and really cool ways, it's not uncommon for me to tab that either. I will say that world is the biggest category when I'm tabbing. The majority of my tabs do tend to be referring to the world, because this can be anything from, as I mentioned, the terrain of the world, it can be the system of currency, it can be to do with like the religion of different factions in the world, or just anything that I find particularly notable regarding to the world and the way that the world is built, which especially applies to high fantasy, because high fantasy is set in a completely imagined world that doesn't exist to us. For politics, I use this in two different ways, I want to say. The first one is in relation to the world building. So if there are any political organizations, any like kind of systems and hierarchies, so like the political system, how the government is run, also anything to do with like royalty and how the monarchy is tiered. I also use it to mark alliances between factions and new alliances that are made throughout the course of the story. And the second way is that if you see anybody partaking in any kind of like political maneuvering, so if anybody's making like alliances, if anybody's backstabbing anybody, if we have any spies among the ranks, then I use politics to tab that as well. Now the plot section can be a little bit all over the place, because a lot of the tabs that I put for plot may not actually be relevant depending on whether it comes to fruition or not. So I do use plot, I would say, the most haphazardly, because anything that seems notable that does not fall into any of the other categories will go under the plot section. So if attention is drawn to something that seems really mundane and I'm thinking there must be a reason for that, I'll tab that. If we have any big plot points, I sometimes tab that if I want to reference back to a particular bit, but I do mainly go for the foreshadowing, so anything that I pick up that I think may come to fruition later on in the book. And the last one is history. Now I've noticed that a lot of adult fantasy relies on history of things that have happened way in the past. So a common one is that a lot of fantasy stories will have a war that happened many years ago. It can range from like recent past to like hundreds or thousands of years ago, and you will sometimes find that the events of that historical war mirror what is currently happening in the timeline. So if anybody tells a story to another character that is historical, or in more magic based fantasies as opposed to political, you will have the fairy tales of the world and the folklore, all of that gets marked in history. Also with characters, if they have a backstory that is explored at any point, I will always tab that, because I've found that if the history of something is being explained, like if we're taking time away from the actual plot and what's going on to explore something that has happened in the past, then there is a reason for that and it is going to be relevant. And it also helps with little bits of foreshadowing, like if a character in this past story has a particular story arc, you can almost guarantee that some element of that is going to come to fruition in the current present plot that you're reading. So I think that just about covers how I annotate my books. It is quite simple. I did go into it in quite a bit of depth in this video while I am making a full video just on this one topic, but if you guys have any questions, then please leave them for me. I will put a link to my paper chase tabs in the description box. I'm not sure if they ship internationally, and I'm not sure where the best place to find them in the US would be. The specific type of tabs that I use isn't particularly relevant. They are just like really cool because there's so many colors. You can use whatever tabs you want, whatever you can find, and while I don't believe paper chase is available in the US, I'm pretty sure that you will have a pretty similar equivalent. Also, once again, a big thank you to today's video sponsor, Redecor. Please don't forget to head to my description box and check out that link if you would like to try out the game for yourself. But aside from that, guys, please don't forget to like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you wanna. If you head into my description box, you'll find a link to my Goodreads, Instagram, Twitter if you'd like to follow me on any of those, as well as a link to my Bookish Candle website, the Instagram for that, and a 10% off discount code. But that's it from me today, guys. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you'll go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.